This episode may contain language or discussions that may be offensive or triggering. Refer to the episode summary for details. And welcome to the SheConfidential podcast. My name is Charlene Ketchum, and today I'm talking to Miss Tyomi Morgan, and she is just fabulous, y'all. She does everything. She is a certified sexologist. She is an authentic tantric practitioner. She's an international pleasure coach. She's a blogger, model, sex educator, intimacy coordinator, and a businesswoman. Like literally
Yes.
does it all. Can you provide like a snapshot of your career and how did you end up being like great and doing so many different things?
Oh my gosh, like it's so funny because I had a podcast interview yesterday with a woman in Toronto, and she was like running down some of my stuff, and I was like, I've done so many things that I've forgotten how much I've actually done. But I started my career as a sex blogger in 2011 when I started my blog, glamorerotica101.com. And before that, like for 2 years, I did some research around the adult industry and just like sex education and seeing if there were spaces that were curated for people of color, specifically Black women, because I was exploring my sexuality and I was having some issues and complications, and I didn't really know where to go and search for this information. Luckily, I know how to use Google. And I love the bookstore, so I'll go and buy books and stuff, but it really bothered me that I saw that the industry around sex education was very white and very white facing, and speaking to and catering to whiteness. And so I was like, you know what? Let me just not complain about it. Let me just jump into this space, because back then, like 2009, 2010, there wasn't this big explosion of sex experts and sexologists as there is now. There was only sex therapists, and I'm sure there were sex educators, but they were not prominent in the digital space. So I was like, all right, let me jump in here. And things just took off from there. And my background was in entertainment. So I already had a lot of connections with people in radio, and some pretty like well-known names in entertainment. And so they would share my stuff. And I was like, 2 weeks after I put my first blog post up, I was literally on a radio show, and things just took off from there. So I started writing for blackdoctor.org and ebony.com and Ebony Magazine. And I started my YouTube channel, which I started on YouTube when it kind of first got, popping off. And
Right.
I was the only Black woman on YouTube educating about sex. And so from there, Comedy Central reached out to me to be on a show called Tosh.0, demonstrating sex positions. And then I had a few viral videos and a radio show with Playboy Radio, all types of appearances and features on every outlet you can think of, and international tours, touring with my fitness program, the Cowgirl Workout, teaching women how to ride and how to feel confident in moving and just showing up in sex in general. I always say it's not just a riding class, it's a fitness class aimed at helping you feel more connected to your body. And so it's beautiful to be able to travel around the world and people recognize me and know me and support me. And so, I always had the vision. My vision was always to reach the masses, and I always knew that I would be in the space that I am today, but to really sit in it and just like look at the history of where I've come from and how far things have come. I'm like, wow, this is really beautiful. And then I still feel like I'm just at the beginning, because I'm in a new space now in my career with how I coach and how I'm reaching people, and adding on more titles, filmmaker and intimacy coordinator for mainstream film and television. So I chose a career path that I knew would have longevity, because you would think that as we advance in technology, that people would also advance in their mindsets around sexuality, but it seems like we're regressing. So
Yes.
I always knew I
Quickly.
would have a job. Ugh, oh my God, it's very scary. It's actually scary. Like the young people who are like 18 and younger, I would say like, preteen to 18, and then like young adults, they scare me a little bit just with the lack of knowledge that they have. And I'm like, but there's so many more sex educators and intimate specialists that show up online than there were ever before. Why is it that you still don't have access to this information? And why are you not utilizing us? Like it's kind of scary. So
Yeah.
I'm in it to win it
Yes.
for the remainder of my days here.
Yes. Do you think that maybe the proliferation of all these so-called social media experts, because that's part of the problem, like everyone is not a Tyomi Morgan. Like, I mean, and not throwing shade to anybody, but everyone is not qualified and not actually educating people accurately.
It is interesting that you say that because we do live in a culture now where if you have a megaphone, i.e., social media or a
Mhm.
podcast or anywhere where you can broadcast, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, then people automatically look at you as an authority. But and don't get me wrong, when it comes to being qualified as a sex educator, like you don't necessarily have to go to a 4-year institution. Like there are plenty of programs where you can get certified, but there are a lot of people who, from their lived experience, they're like, well, I've had a lot of sex and and I know all these things. Let me just jump out here and start teaching people. But you need to know have the baseline information that all of us share that is medically accurate and up to date. You know what I mean? And so it's okay to speak from your lived experience, but you're going to need more than that if you want to call yourself an expert and get more opportunities, because you're holding people's lives in your hands, and you're also impacting their minds, and you're going to be impressionable. So yeah, the culture of the expert really does make the average person just think like, oh, I could just jump in and do this. And then when they get in and they realize that there's actually business behind it, like if you really want to be successful aside from just going viral, it's like going viral doesn't pay your bills unless it's attached to something that's going to lead back to a paid source. So like when it comes to the business aspect of things, it's like they don't know where to go from there. And so it can be confusing for the consumer to sift through all of the podcasts, all of the megaphones, all of the self-proclaimed experts, right? To figure out what information is accurate and what's actually going to appeal to them. And so sometimes it's like we're going back and we're correcting things that other people have said or done because they've been misinformed. And so it's like a uphill battle.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any tips for people on how to discern who is actually qualified, who's credible, who is giving credible information as it relates to sex education?
Definitely fact check. You can easily take what they say and then you can go on Google and you can put that stuff in, and then you can find sources that will either match up with what they say or it will dispel what they're saying. So, and it's funny because I'm seeing now on social media, Instagram and Twitter, that there are fact checkers. I don't even know
Yeah.
where these people came from or what kind of algorithms these are, but
Hey.
like I will see it on posts and it will say, our fact checkers
Yeah.
confirm that this is accurate or this isn't accurate. Proceed with caution, which I think that's so smart because, you know, people can say anything. Now, when it comes to sexual health information, they're doing more censoring than they are fact checking.
Yeah.
So I don't really see that as much on the type of content that people like me put out there. But the best thing to do is just to go to Google and look for reputable sources. Healthline is a great source. WebMD is a great source. The CDC is a great source. Any like medical journals, great sources. Even spaces like the New York Times or LA Times or BuzzFeed and things like that can be good spaces too. But when it comes to the popularized broadcasters like the Huffington Posts and things like that, you want to make sure that like when you're reading it, you're seeing those expert names. You can link back to their websites and everything to make sure that they're credible. And a lot of times in the articles that are written around sex, the experts that they pull from are people who are qualified experts, or they're doctors and they have credentials. So always fact check. And like it's kind of hard to feel into your intuition when you don't have the knowledge at all. So relying on your intuition is not going to be enough. Like go and get the hard facts.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And you have been like a natural educator and advocate for all things related to sexual health and wellness and education. And last year, and I think this is one of the first places, well, I had seen some of your articles and some of the features that you've done because you've been featured everywhere.
Yeah.
But then I saw you on the news last year because you were a really outspoken advocate for content creators during all the
Hmm.
OnlyFans hoopla when they recently attempted to eliminate sex work from the platform after they profited hugely
Yeah.
from it. They decided, oh, we want to
Yes.
try to censor it or eliminate it and everything. So, how did your involvement happen in that? And where do things stand today?
So it's interesting because when it comes to media, like because I'm a person that's involved with media, I know how to network with different people, and Twitter is like the best place for that. And so the writer, shout out to Marcus, he was writing this article and he wanted to focus on Black content creators that were actually sex workers, and so he already reached out to my brother King New War to be a part of the article. And then he reached out to me, and I was just like, great. And so we did the interview, and I am an OnlyFans content creator as well. I started in 2019,
Okay.
January 2019. So it was beautiful to be a part of something where I could set my own boundaries. I could have a place where my content can live, and all the things that I was doing on like the thirst traps and things like that I was putting up on Instagram that was now getting taken down. I had a place to literally put that and make money off of it and like sustain a lifestyle. And so it really pissed me off because companies do this all the time. We see it all the time. Your platforms are built by sex workers, and then you want to denounce sex workers. I've seen it with so many brands, even like Fashion Nova, like Squire is kept. Fashion Nova in their early days, all the working girls were supporting them because the clothes were cheap and they needed them for shoots, for shows, for calls, whatever. And so many businesses that people wouldn't even know have literally been built on the backs of sex workers. And
Yeah.
for OnlyFans to literally, for them to literally be known for sex work and then
Yep.
try to turn around and say, because they're processors, whatever, they had to see what they wanted to do was go public and trade on the stock
Yep.
market. And so people who were investing in them were putting the pressure on. It's just like what happened with Tumblr and when Yahoo bought them. you
Yep.
know they pulled all the sex stuff off of there. Granted, sex stuff still lives and erotica still lives on Tumblr, but it's not like heavily publicly facing. And look
Mhm.
what happened to Tumblr. I mean, who's on it anymore? People are on it, but it's not the thing. So I was just like, the audacity of these people to sit up here and say that and then also gaslight us, but then also place our livelihoods in jeopardy over something that could literally
Yeah.
be shifted, and you have control over it. Like, you're a
Mhm.
multi-billion-dollar business. Why would you seek to do that? And it's like when companies try to go commercial, they want to try to distance themselves from anything sex. That's why I was a little afraid about Elon Musk buying Twitter, because I was like, if Elon
Yeah.
buys Twitter, then what's going to happen to the worker community on Twitter? Because Twitter
Yeah.
is the only place we can really promote our stuff and put our stuff out there without being flagged and our pages taken down heavily, even though shadow banning does exist there and like limited visibility, it happens. So, I'm always open to talk to journalists about, my advocacy and just really being a voice for sex workers, especially those of us who are people of color. And
Yes.
and also, like, I didn't know it was going to be like front page of Yahoo News when it came out. I was like, ooh.
Yeah. I was like, this is so dope. Yes.
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 And the writer was a Black man too. So, what I love is networking with Black journalists,
Yeah.
because one thing that people don't understand, it doesn't matter what industry, right? If you want to deepen your digital footprint, and if you want to show up online stronger, and you want your SEO, your search engine optimization, to be strong, the best thing to do is to get in the press. You get in the press by networking with journalists, with writers, because they always have bylines that need to be turned in. And so if you build a relationship with them, then they will include you in things. So That's always been my mindset since I started this work. That's why I've been on so many podcasts and I've been featured in so many articles, because I'm always willing to lend my voice. And I was happy that went somewhere, and that OnlyFans reversed everything that they were
Yeah.
saying, because what they saw was a grand exodus. They started seeing people leave the platform and
Yeah.
go to their competitors, and they were like, "Oh, wait, hold on, just kidding." It's like, don't
We
do that.
losing the money.
Exactly. They start seeing it go down. It was like,
Yeah.
we made a mistake. That's not what we meant. And that was the gaslighting part, was like them trying to say that that's not what they meant. It's like, you said what you said, and you said it very boldly, and you sent us all the terms of service messages in our inboxes. So if you didn't mean to say that, then why send that?
Right.
I mean, so many people were stressed out and panicking because this is their livelihood and their only stream of income for some people. And then
Yes.
those who were like newly into OnlyFans for erotic content with the pandemic, it was
Yeah.
like, well, what am I going to go back to? You know what I mean? So yeah, that was a big piece. And then I did a lot of panels and advocacy around how Black sex workers are treated in the industry, in the adult industry,
Mhm.
which I guess I only feel disappointed because I have hope in humanity, but I'm not surprised that it was just all lip service, because everything just went back to how it has been since forever. When the George Floyd situation happened, everybody wanted to, you know, check on their Black employees, check on
Mm.
their Black content creators, check on their Black
Yeah.
friends, because it was all performative. In 2022, it's like, okay, you see, you're going right back to the same stuff that you were
Mhm.
in. But I was happy to at least lend my voice
Yes.
to AVN and kink.com and XBiz, to just bring awareness to this, because people don't understand that even in the adult industry, racism and prejudice, they rear
Yeah.
their ugly heads, and the consumers have a part to play in all of this as well. So there's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much being in this industry.
And I appreciate you raising all of that because, for a lot of people and for a long time, like I have gotten really educated in part because I heard voices, I heard people like you talking
Hmm.
about these considerations that you don't traditionally think about. Because I thought, oh, I didn't realize that there was a need for OnlyFans when I really found out like how empowering. I heard your interview and then I Googled. I was just like, okay, treatment and profitability of sex workers, all these different things. And I learned like the exploitation is horrible, particularly for
Yeah.
Black women. And
Hmm.
so having you come and educate us and be on all these platforms, whether people want to acknowledge that they consume sex content, adult content or not, we need to care about our people. Whether you want to
Yes,
acknowledge
we
you consume it
do.
or not, we got to care about our people because the exploitation is real. And particularly, like you noted during the pandemic, for a lot of people, that was their only stream of income. And for a lot of folks,
Hmm.
also, what they would go back to if they lost that virtual space was something that we should all be concerned about.
Exactly. It's just interesting how people's perceptions are around being a sex worker. So it's a spectrum, Some people go into it because it's a survival technique. Some people
Yeah.
go into it because this is truly what they want to do and they feel passionate about eroticism and hedonism and just exploring that and putting that out into the world. And some people just want to be creative in that space, but we're all human, and we
Yeah.
all still have to eat and have a roof over our heads and clothes on our backs and all of that. And what people don't understand is that there are ethics in this stuff. When you go on tube sites like Pornhub, I mean Pornhub
Mhm.
now has gotten better to the point where they did a huge sweep of their site of
Yeah.
like videos that were being uploaded from people that were not the actual content creator. And so then they started verifying content creators on Pornhub, and now they're able to get money from it. But tube sites like Pornhub and XNXX and all the other sites that you may go on, like She's Freaky, those sites are pirating content. And if you're consuming it, you're stealing from the people who are creating this content. So you're not being ethical in your consumption, and you're taking
Mm.
money out of these people's mouths. And people who go to OnlyFans to steal content to put up on other sites, you're stealing and you're taking money out of people's mouths. So if the consumer understood that paying for porn not only is ethical, but it's supporting your favorite creators, then maybe they
Mhm.
would stop supporting these types of sites. But unfortunately, there is not a lot of education around pornography consumption. There's more pushback and censorship of it, and even groups who are out there saying that porn is the problem. Porn is not the problem. Porn's always been around. It's been around since forever, even before it was in the visual sense. It was in on papyrus paper and
Yes.
scrolls and things like
Yeah.
that. And so it's always been around, but it's the lack of education around how to consume it in a healthy way and how to support the people who are actually providing this content. This is entertainment. It's adult entertainment.
Yeah.
They got the big old FBI warning sign before every mainstream film saying, don't pirate this, right? Or else you can get a fine. But when it
Yeah.
comes to porn, it's not the same thing,
Yeah.
right? And that just shows you how much they
I agree
actually
with that.
value sex.
Yeah.
It's like we got here through the vehicle of sex. Sexuality literally fuels our creativity. And yet,
Yeah.
you don't want to respect the work that we do because of Puritanism. Like,
But they'll make
soapbox.
some money off of it. It's like the
Yes,
hypocrisy of it. It's like the same people who are denouncing it are secretly consuming it, but you don't want to protect the people involved.
it pisses me off so much. And then the blacker you are, the more at risk you are, um, the more ethnic leaning you are, the bigger you are in your body, the more you are at risk for
Mhm.
being censored, being shut down. And so, like
Yeah.
lately, when it comes to social media, particularly Instagram, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I feel like I can't really post up the things that I want to post because they'll find something very petty to ding my page about. And it's like, I'm just over here trying to spread the good word. This is the Lord's work. I don't understand
Huh.
why you're harassing me, you know? And yet, and still, when you go and look at the hashtag sexpert or sex expert on Instagram, you're seeing mostly white people in
Yeah. Yeah.
that. Like,
Yes.
what?
I can attest for that. When I've searched for them, it's like, why am I all these white women coming up in my
So
feed?
many white
Really?
women. So many. And don't get me wrong, I have my white women allies who work in this space as well. Shouts out to
Yes.
all of them. They know
Yeah.
who they are. But it really infuriates me that they try to censor us and prevent us from speaking, and that's why I am as loud as I am. That's why I am as widespread as I am, because you're not going to stop me from speaking. So I accept every podcast interview, no matter how small the audience may be, whether it's
Yeah.
brand new or it's years old, because I'm like, if somebody wants to put me on their platform to speak about
Yeah.
sexuality, and I am a black woman, let's
Yeah.
go, because
Yeah.
you can't stop that, and SEO will live
Yes,
forever.
absolutely. Yes. And you just hinted to something else. The power of collaboration, and particularly when it comes to Black content creators and experts and educators, because the more we collaborate, we amplify our individual
Yes,
voices to empower the collective. And so that is
absolutely.
so powerful. And so I absolutely when your assistant said yes, I was like, oh my gosh, yay! Because like I know you are super busy. I'm in the cowgirl community and everything. I follow you on Instagram, and I've seen when they've taken your page down, and I just shake my head because I've seen these disruptions, and I'm like, she's posting. You're talking about your wellness journey and everything, and then just normalizing for me, especially as a Black woman, to see you normalizing body confidence and
Yes.
learning, being educated about my body and
Mhm.
normalizing asking for what I want and just being comfortable just in my body. We're not even talking
That's so
about
big.
sex, just being comfortable with. loving my body. Like that's
Yes.
so basic. And
It's
so
so
it's just
basic, it's so
crazy to
major.
me
It's
that
so
it's like they're
major.
going to shut down your page because you were empowering women. I mean, and I know you're empowering everybody who comes to your page, but I'm just speaking just as a Black woman. When I come to your page and
Mhm.
I'm like, I see somebody who looks like me, I see
Yes.
somebody who is confident, but also acknowledging, like, okay, I'm going through this health thing. This is what I did, and being vulnerable. It's like, okay, it's okay for me to do that too. Like, we need to see that. And so
Absolutely.
I am so thankful that you keep pushing through and fighting for it, because we have to amplify each other's voices. And when somebody takes somebody's page down, we got to get the message out another way. That's how we have to
Mhm.
work together, because they can't silence all of us.
They cannot. And when we stand together, guess what? We are strong. And so I've always been the person in this space too to not be a gatekeeper but a key holder,
Yeah.
where I open it. If I get an opportunity, the first thing I do, I hit up my friends. I'm like, yo, what's up?
Mhm.
Do you want to be in this? Like when I got the job at Ebony, I had bylines and I needed to have subjects. And so all of my friends, I was like, hey, I want to interview you for Ebony. And what did it do? It helped to boost their careers, you know,
Yes.
whether it was in the magazine or it was on the website. Like Ebony is a legendary, incredible source
Yes.
for the Black community. So if you're in those publications, people are going to be like, yes, you're an expert.
Yeah.
And when I worked for blackdoctor.org, I did the same thing. And then when the Exotica Expo brought me on as their seminar coordinator and their resident sex expert to help curate their seminar series, which
Mhm.
before I came in, it wasn't like that. It was just like grabbing for straws. Hey, you got a premium booth. You can speak on the seminar series. But they brought me in to actually curate it and grow their educational side of the show. And I called up all of my friends and I told my boss, I said, look, I know that the show, like, your marketing is very like, it focuses on like white folk or whatever. It's an inclusive show, absolutely. But your marketing is like kind of white. Just letting you know, I'm bringing in everybody Black. Just letting you know, most of my
Yeah.
people are going to be Black. He's like, it's fine. And so I feel very proud that I could literally give my fellow educators an opportunity to, for some of them, like speak publicly for the first time and on a
Mhm.
large platform where they're getting major exposure. Like some of them have like gone on to be on different TV shows on like CNN or like local news and get
Mhm.
casted for reality shows and all kind of things. And so it like collaboration is key. I don't like the idea of competition because at the end of the day, all of us like we're teaching pretty much the same things, but in our own way. And then some of us are more we have a niche and we stick to that niche and it's like what's the point of sitting here creating separation between
Yeah.
people. You know what I mean? When you can collaborate. Like I've created tours where I've brought my friends along and I'm like, hey, let's travel and let's do these shows. And that was some of their first times ever touring. And then they just picked up the torch and they started touring for themselves. So I love like being a
Mhm.
person of influence where I can help people's businesses grow. And I can say confidently that I have helped several sex educators, um, in many capacities to grow their businesses and to be successful for the long term. And I want to see more of that. And I'm going to be helping even more people because we deserve to be paid.
Yeah.
It's so even in this industry, like black black sexual influencers, black sex educators and coaches aren't paid the same as
Crazy.
those who are not black, right? And so I can just even speak for myself, like it has been a journey and a fight to advocate to be paid what I deserve to be paid over the course of my career. And it's like, you're not going to sit up here and try to get me on some, here's a product, and then just post up for exposure. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I can run off my resume and tell you how exposed I have been. Okay. I don't need that. What I need is for my bills to be paid. And if you want
Yeah.
to access my community, which is primarily Black people across the diaspora,
Yes.
then you're going to have to pay me. So, and even empowering other educators and content creators in that way is like so important, because I recently learned from another interview that there's many of us out here who don't know how to like be in a space like where I am, where I'm full time coach and I'm sustaining my lifestyle in my business because my business is successful. Some people just don't know about SEO, digital footprint,
Yeah.
marketing, social media, how to get through the censorship. It's not. Um, it's not blatantly clear, and I have to say, like when I first started, I didn't have anybody to look at and say, this person's doing it, I'm going to do it like that. I literally took a shovel and had to pave my own way and figure it out through trial and
Yeah.
error, and sometimes sleepless nights and crying and feeling like my whole
Yeah.
world was on fire. So now I want to pass the information that I have on to others who are just coming in, or maybe those who have been in it for a while, but they feel like they've reached a ceiling, because we all deserve to be paid, and we all deserve to be sustaining a beautiful, stress free lifestyle on
Yes.
in doing the work that we love to do. We are in service to the world and we deserve to be paid for that. So, that's like my next phase, because I've been doing this for going on 11 years now. My next phase is like passing on information to others so that they can be successful while also scaling my own business up and moving more into production.
Yeah. I love that you're willing to teach what you know, because a lot of times, especially with the social media age, people want to show their fabulous life and how
Yeah,
they've secured the bag, but they might be real stingy with
they be
telling other people how to do it for
stingy.
themselves.
Exactly. And it's like there are, so if you have a skill set, you can sell the knowledge of that skill set to those who want to do the same thing or
Yes.
something similar. Like, and there's no competition. Everybody has. So I learned this from a coaching program that I was in. It's like everyone has 255,000 people in the world that they are meant to directly influence. So in
Mm,
hearing that, I'm like, well, guess what? I don't need to ever sit in any spirit of competition, because those who will be activated by my voice will come to me.
yes.
And I always remember that it's not about me. I am here on purpose. I am literally doing God's work. And
Yes.
so if God is calling me to pass on the information so that others can be successful, then I'm going to do that. And it brings me joy to say that, and to be able to look at people who I've influenced or who I've coached and see them going on vacations, buying homes,
Yes.
being able to support their families because they know what to do now and they know how to do it. And then seeing them just confidently walking in their work. So, you know, because I hear that all the time, like, oh, it's competition. And like lately, people have been sending me like videos of other women who have riding course classes. And I'm like, look, y'all got to understand something. I created my class in 2014. It's on YouTube, right? I started touring in 2016, touring the world. So I was doing that for 5 years before the pandemic hit. I've already done that. And now I've created a community online that is beautiful. And it's one of the only
Yes.
spaces on the internet like it.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't need to feel like I'm in competition with anyone when I'm
No.
a trailblazer and I have influenced others to do something similar, because before I was doing it in a commercial way, nobody was doing it. It's like, and it's documented, but I'm not going to sit here and place my energy into looking at a variation that someone else created. Why would I do that? That's like McDonald's corporation, paying attention to what White Castle and Wendy's and Burger King is doing. It's like I'm sure they analyze, because in big business they do that, but they're not putting all their energy into trying to stop the
Mm-mm.
competition. They're like, okay, well, how can we make what we're doing better? And so I'm always evolving and growing. And again, I'm like, and this is common in the space though. It's like a lot of us do have techniques and theories and things that we have coined, that we've come up with.
Yeah.
And it's not okay for people to take our copywritten and trademark materials and try to adopt it as their own and then build an entire business around it. That's where I do take issue because I'm trademarked and I'm copywritten. So,
Thank you for highlighting that. Because see, that's a lot of things that a lot of business owners don't know and entrepreneurs. It's like people are creating, they're being innovative, but they're not
mhm.
protecting that innovation.
Oh no, baby. If I find out anybody is teaching anything within the realm that I teach, I will be serving a cease and desist.
Hmm.
Because this is business at the end of the day. And what
Yes.
I've created is mine. This came from my brain.
Yep.
So, in the least, if you're going to use something that is mine, reference me and say, "You got this
Mhm.
from me." And I do that all the time when I've learned something from a fellow educator or I've
Mhm.
pulled something from their work. I will say, "I got this from this person," you know. And shouts out to all the sex educators out there who do that. But there are some people who don't, and it's
Mhm.
disrespectful. And business is business. One person that I look up to, my dearest friend, Debbie Ward Erickson, when it comes to business, she is a boss. And what she created with Authentic Tantra, she protects it fiercely because she is a guardian of lineage based practices and and what she created by integrating it into all of the other techniques that she's picked up along the way. And so anyone that is infringing upon her trademark, she she will come for you. And that's how you have to be. Like your
Yeah.
business is your baby. Your concepts are from like they are your children. And that's something that I hope anyone who's like wanting to come into the space realizes is like when you coin something, when you come up with something and it is helpful to the world, protect it. Because business, the only thing that business understands is legalities. And if
Hmm.
you are not legally protected, if it's
They
not
don't
on
care.
paper, they don't care. Get you some lawyers,
Yeah.
okay? Like and there are people who will work pro bono too. So get you some lawyers. Knowing the business behind this is just as important as the information that you're putting out there.
Yes. Thank you. Woo. And you, one of the things that I love, I mean, you're so big, you are business minded, but you also have a very holistic approach to things. And so I want to
Yes.
talk a little bit about the ways that you've taken natural remedies to relieve some of your health struggles. And so first, can you share why you decided to be forthcoming and vulnerable with social media about your health struggles and how yeah, I mean, because I was so surprised, but I was like, "Oh my gosh," and I went and got that beet juice that you're like, I seriously I had did screenshots. I had to watch the video a couple of times to go back to screenshot different things. I'm like, "Okay, anything that's natural, helpful remedies, I'm willing to try this out." And I was so appreciative that you were giving that information. That's why I'm like, how can you take down a page that's teaching us, like, how to love and nourish our bodies?
hmm
Like, this is crazy. So, yeah, what made you open up about your personal health struggles?
So I've always used my body as like a testing ground for things and as like an educational source, and I've
Mm,
always been very drawn to the natural world. And so when I started my journey into like spirituality and like metaphysical things, magic and all that, and herbs, I just
mhm,
started seeing what it could do for my body. And at
yeah,
one point, I was like strictly vegetarian, and I saw like what that did for my body and everything. And just like being a public figure, and people are expecting me to show up. There are some days when I don't, and those days when I don't, it's because having challenges in my physical health or in my mental health. And so being transparent about that is really important because I want people who are my clients to know like, hey, this is what I'm going through. But also to show people that I'm human because when you do get to a star status and people put you on a pedestal and like, oh
mhm,
my God, you're so famous. It's like
yeah,
they forget that you're human. And so
yeah,
in creating a practice that is relatable, I'm like, let me tell you that I am also struggling with this too, or I'm living with this too. And so, and then being able to say, this is what I'm dealing with, and then people see the journey and then they see the results, it's like, wow, it's actually possible. I can do it too. Like I
Yeah.
remember when I tried the keto diet. I did it for a year. And when I did it, so many people were coming to me like, oh my gosh, I want to do this, but I've been scared. Like, what are your experiences? Blah blah blah. I'm like, look, y'all, I'm not a keto expert. I'm just trying something with my body to see if it will work, and it did work. But I don't do it anymore because with keto, it's like from what I've like studied, it's only supposed to be used for a moment in time. It's not supposed to be like a lifelong experience because it can eventually like wreak havoc on your heart because it's like high fat or whatever. But I just want to inspire people and show them like this is possible. And like one of the most miraculous things was like learning that. So I was diagnosed with PCOS in 2014, and all of my ultrasounds had always come up with my ovaries being cystic. And for the first time since then, in 2021, I got an ultrasound and my ovaries were clear. And I was just like, what? Because I started like a regimen with like some different herbs and like meditation and just releasing stress from my body and
Yeah.
reconciling with repressed things that I was holding on to. So I do a lot of energetic work and introspection, and I like to put things in my body that I know are live foods. Like I love herbs. I love my greens. I love my fruits and vegetables. You know, I do my meats too, you know what I mean? But I try to do them in moderation. But I just want to show people what is possible and to be a coach that is about what she preaches, because
Yeah.
some people will be out here as a big old megaphone, right? And they're not living the life that they're telling other people that they should be living. It's like, and especially like when I got COVID back in December,
Yeah.
I was like, I know natural remedies are it.
Yeah.
And I increased nitric oxide with the beet juice. I made chicken noodle soup from scratch with carrots and celery, which also had nitric oxide. Like I already knew what to do and what to put together and what herbs to use so that I could become better. And I did get better. So it is my pleasure to use my life as an example of the of your potential, because
Yes.
everyone may not like reach the level that I'm at, but they can see that it's possible. And if they see
Yes.
someone who looks like them
Hmm.
representing that and living that, then it gives them hope to at least try.
Yes.
And the great thing about it is like if you become a client, I am your coach and I'm here for you and I'm rooting you on and we're going through it together. So, I've always wanted to be relatable, not somebody who is like completely untouchable and like just creating like a fantasy of things.
Yeah.
I was like, it made sense to me to just use my life as an example. I mean, that's why God put us here anyway.
Truly. Yeah. To be of service. Be
Of
of service.
service.
Yes.
Yes.
How have you found empowerment and fulfillment through your work?
Oh my gosh. Like, so as I grow, I'm passing on that information to my clients and to anyone who will listen. And so the fact that I'm in this work, it gives me the freedom to explore, to express myself. And, as I'm researching and studying and learning more things, it's like I'm also learning about myself. Even when I'm working with clients, it's like through their stories and through their growth, I'm growing as well and I'm practicing. So it's just like with like medical doctors, right? In the same way with me as a tantric practitioner and as a coach, I'm continuously practicing. So then I'm empowered in my sex life, and I'm empowered in making decisions and that are going to be healthy for me and maintaining boundaries. And it's just been a beautiful blossoming. Like I've been able to grow at a steady pace and I'm still growing and I'm still learning. And the fact that I know like sexuality is a spectrum, like everything pretty much exists on a spectrum, I don't feel so married to any one thing, and I feel okay with changing my mind. And so it
Yeah.
just feels good to know that in doing this work I get to grow, and then I get to help others grow, and it just feels good. And what I do is a sense of resistance, a sense of resistance as well, because I remember when I first started this work, I had to fight tooth and nail on social media, primarily Twitter, because when I first started, Instagram didn't exist. um,
Yeah.
yeah, when I first started, Instagram did not exist. I've been on Twitter since 2008. And when I first started this work, I had so many trolls and people coming at me on Twitter and
Mhm.
YouTube, trying to tear me down, tear my body down, telling me I need to lose weight, and oh, you're a whore, this, that, like just throwing all kind of stuff at me. And I literally had to have a tough skin, and I had to push back in a way that was witty and
Yeah.
that would establish my boundaries.
Mhm.
And over time, it like even that just made me feel empowered, because I'm like, I'm doing something that the world would say Black women aren't supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
as if we don't have a right to show up fully empowered in our sexuality and be a megaphone for it, as if it's only for white people. It's not. And so I just, every day I wake up, I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you a revolutionary. Let's go.
Yeah. Doing a damn thing. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. What do you think is holding most Black women back from loving their bodies more than ever and getting the most pleasure from their bodies? Because a lot of Black women are really detached from our
Yes.
bodies. And there's a lot of historical,
Hmm.
reasons for that.
Hmm.
But, what are some things that Black women can do to really magnify their love for their body and the pleasure that they can derive in and from their bodies?
I would say first and foremost, admit that that's there. Admit that you are disconnected. Admit that there is something wrong because you don't feel good about being disconnected. And then seeking out therapy, because, with the generational trauma that we have literally sustained over the course of generations has altered our DNA.
Yes.
And no one in the history of America has ever said, hey, Black people, let's put you in
Mm,
some therapy. It's
mm.
like one oppressive thing after another, after another, after another. And then when you're a Black woman, we are like the most unprotected people in the world, where we are expected to save the world and hold the world up on our shoulders. But when it is time for people to show up for us, they do not show up for us. So Black women have to show up for each other.
Yeah.
And so finding community, seeking out therapy. And
Mhm.
what I love about Black women, and I say this because Black women are my primary base, right?
Mhm.
Is that Black women and women in general too are willing to do the work. I'm
Yes.
applauding men for stepping up finally and getting into that space where they're willing to do the work. But women are like, let's go. What do I need to do? Because I am tired and I need help. Women don't have heavy ego around that typically. And if they do, it's a trauma response,
Yes.
So finding community, seeking out therapy, and therapy is on a spectrum. You're gonna need a psychologist or a psychiatrist,
Mm,
and a sex therapist, and a
mm,
sex coach, and a
mm.
life coach, and a metaphysical coach, and a business coach.
Need
Like,
a whole
you
team.
need
I
the
tell
whole
people, whole
team.
team.
And then unplugging. Social media is toxic. Okay. This world that we live in now, these microcosms, it's only snapshots of all the good things. And now we got all these filters and things that's altering people's bodies and appearances. And so you scroll and you see all these things and you think that you have to fit into that. And when you don't, then you feel like you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Disconnecting from social media, or at least following people that are more in alignment and mirror with what you look like and what you stand for, and then questioning the scripts that are coming up in your head, and doing some think therapy to rewire those scripts, figuring out where they came from. Because our personalities are really a mixture of our personal experiences and programming from the world. So, and then our personal experiences are informed by those programs. So, once you figure out where the original programming came from, you can really return it back to sender and then ask yourself, what do I really think? What do I want to feel? And then you go from there. Being introspective and tapping back into your intuition, that is a big piece of it. And then also examining the relationships that are around you because they matter. If you don't have people around you who are empowering you, who are showing you love and affection, who are
Mhm.
lifting you up, then of course you're going to feel disconnected from your body. If you're living in conditions of chronic stress, and unfortunately, being Black people,
Mm.
intersectionality is a thing.
Yep.
It's not like we just deal with one thing. We deal with a multitude of things that are compounded. And so we literally have to pick each of those things apart to figure out how it's impacting the relationships that we have with our bodies. And I mean, it's also a pushback against the common narrative that we hear, especially when you are a darker Black person,
Yeah.
a Black person in a larger body.
Hmm.
There are certain narratives around what that means or what you can and can't do. And that's
Yeah.
why I say you have to question those things and really ask yourself, like, is that truly what I believe, or did somebody else tell me that?
Hmm.
So I'm always here for my sisters, especially my sisters in fuller bodies. And like, I don't know where people get the idea that like the things that I do are for skinny people, but I'm like, I'm not skinny, y'all. I've never been skinny. I don't know. I mean, the smallest I ever was, I was a size 8, and it was because I was depressed. And then I also went into like being a vegetarian, but I've always been in a larger body. And I know that struggle. And I know how hard it can be to embrace yourself when the world around you, it seems like it's made for everybody smaller. Like, so there's a lot of like personal reckoning and introspection that must be done to repair the connection between your mind and body, and then being able to receive pleasure because your body is really that the instrument through which you can receive pleasure through your senses. So if you don't have that connection, then how can you really live out the fullness of your pleasure? And I'm not just talking about sexual pleasure. They are sensual, spiritual, emotional pleasure, and sexual
Mhm.
pleasure. You're not going to be able to tap in unless you're already connected. So I love reconnecting people to their bodies in my work. That's one of the most powerful things that I think I could ever help anyone do.
Absolutely. And so, can you describe some of the ways that people can work with you?
Yes, there's so many ways. So it's on the spectrum, right?
Yes.
So if you are a person that has like a quick question and it's just something that you want advice about or you want confirmation about, I have a quick coaching platform on Wizio.com. And all the stuff you can find on my Instagram at Real Glamazon Tyomi in my bio. I'm updating my websites now, so my website will have all these options too. If you are a person with a vagina and you want to learn how to not only ride the D, but also just become more comfortable with your body and reconnect with your body, the cowgirlworkout.com is the place for you. It is the fitness program that you need, and it's a fitness program that you can literally have on top of any other fitness programs you have, whether you're in the gym doing Pilates, yoga, whatever. You can add the cowgirl workout in to your regular everyday life. And it's also a community of
Yeah.
sisters who have the same goals. If you want to work with me one to one, you can book a session with me through the link in my bio on my Instagram. There's a few different options there for business coaching and for one to one. And what I typically do is for people who have like issues that are more chronic or that have been long lasting, I want to work with you for at least 4 months because one session isn't just
Yeah.
going to do it all. But I also have the option of people working with me on a session to session basis as well. So all that can be found through my Calendly. And I'm going to be launching an app soon. That's going to
Ooh.
be a Tantra app because a lot of people are interested in Tantra, and there aren't too many sources out there that encourage people to focus on tantric tools like on a daily basis. So it's my goal to start this app and put that out there. And then
Now,
I'm
what's
building.
Tantra for people who aren't familiar
Oh,
with it?
so Tantra is a spiritual practice that basically uses sexual energy and sexual pleasure as a tool for healing. The traditional definition for Tantra is weaving light and sound with form, meaning bringing visualization or using visualization and mantras to infuse into the body, and we're using that as a healing modality. So
Mm,
most people think about tantric sex when they hear tantra and they say, oh, that's like really connected, like really deep love making, right? And it's like, yes, and tantric sex is the tool, tantra is the
mhm,
practice, and the basis of our tantric practice is breath work, movement, pleasure, and breathe, meditation. Like if you're willing to sit down
mhm,
and breathe and meditate, then tantra is for you. And just honestly, tantra is a tool. It is a medicine that I just think that everyone needs, because everyone can use some time to sit down and breathe
mhm.
and snap out of the fight or flight response.
Yeah.
Um, and it just helps to just rewire your nervous system and help to truly heal trauma. And it's not a cakewalk when you start to go through the process, but the
Yeah.
other side of it is so beautiful. I'm speaking from experience because
Mm,
as a practitioner, I'm not teaching something that I haven't gone through, you know.
mm,
And then thepleasureacademy.com. I'm still working on getting my courses up, but that's the place where all of my coursework will live. So I used to do like live calls and classes and stuff like that. And I was like, I just want everything to be in one place instead of having to like, do Eventbrite and Zoom and send out emails. It's like a whole, thing. And so thepleasureacademy.com is also a place, and it's like self-guided. So
mhm,
you can sign up for this course. You'll have access to it for life. And then you can pick it up whenever you're ready. Because I understand that some people will buy things on impulse, but they might not be ready at that point in time to actually do
mhm.
the work, because this work isn't, it's not like the easiest thing to do, because there's so much stuff that comes up around it emotionally. So you can work with me one to one. You can work with me on a quick coaching call. You can work with me in the cowgirlworkout.com, thepleasureacademy.com, soon to come my Tantra app, and also hire me in person to either host an event or come and coach you in person. So just reach out to me on my Instagram, and on my Instagram, I also have my email address, so you can send an email and ask more questions if you need more clarification. So I am here in all capacities to be of service.
Wonderful. And I will include the link for your Instagram in the description box for the YouTube video and the podcast app. So for y'all listening or watching, just check the little description box and the links will be there. So,
Yay.
is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with before we wrap up?
Oh gosh, I just want to say be bold about advocating for your pleasure, advocating for your sexual health, because the government doesn't care. The government does not care. The powers that be don't care. If anything, they're trying to silence us, and they're trying to take us back in time with taking away some of our reproductive rights and just human rights in general. And so be bold about standing up for what you know is right for yourself, and be unafraid to reach out to people like myself who work in this space, who are here to serve you, and just bring the ego down. It's easy to just be like, oh, wow, I know everything, I'm good. It's like, yes, and there is more. There's always more. As a practitioner, I'm saying there's always more, because I'm always learning and growing. So bring the ego down and just come with an open mind, an open heart, and the willingness to shift and change and to do the work, and your life is going to be blessed for it. And I'm also a plug. So even if I'm not the person who's the right coach for you, I know other people who I can refer you to who may be an even better fit. So holla at your girl.
Thank you for all you do. Thank you for showing up for you and being of service to all the rest of us.
Thank you, Charlene. It's my pleasure to do so. God is good.
Yes, all the time.
All the
Thank
time,
you.
God is good.